The bride ordered, "Clean it with your tongue." The billionaire watched the poor girl being humiliated at his wedding. His reaction shocked all the guests in the room. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The crystal chandeliers of the Ashford Grand Ballroom sparkled like 1,000 stars, casting golden light over 300 of New York's elite. Alexander Sterling stood at the altar in his custom Armani tuxedo, his jaw tight as he watched his bride-to-be, Victoria Ashford, glide through the pre-ceremony reception. Everything was perfect, too perfect, the kind of perfection that cost $5 million and felt hollow. "Mr. Sterling, champagne." A small, trembling voice interrupted his thoughts. Alexander looked down and saw her for the first time. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, with golden blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her dress was clean but worn, clearly a hand-me-down, and her blue eyes were wide with nervousness. She held a silver tray with champagne flutes, her small hands shaking slightly under the weight. "Thank you," he said gently, taking a glass. Something about her seemed familiar, though he couldn't place it. The child gave him a shy smile and continued through the crowd, carefully balancing the tray. Alexander watched her navigate between the guests, her small frame nearly invisible among the towering adults in their designer gowns and tuxedos. Then it happened. Victoria, radiant in her $60,000 Vera Wang gown, was holding court with a group of socialites when the little girl approached with her tray. The child was saying something, offering drinks, when Victoria turned abruptly. Her elbow knocked the tray, and a glass of red wine tumbled through the air, splashing onto the white marble floor. The ballroom fell silent. Every conversation stopped, every eye turned to watch. "You clumsy little brat!" Victoria's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Do you have any idea how much this dress costs? You could have ruined it." I'm sorry, Mom," the little girl whispered, her voice breaking. "You turned and don't you dare blame me." Victoria's face twisted with rage. "You're here to serve, not to make excuses." The child's eyes filled with tears, but she bit her lip, trying desperately not to cry. Alexander started to move toward them, sensing something was very wrong. But what happened next made his blood run cold. Victoria pointed at the red wine pooling on the pristine marble floor. "Clean it up, now." "Yes, ma'am. I'll get a towel." "No." Victoria's smile was cruel, her voice dripping with disdain. "Lick it up, with your tongue." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Several women covered their mouths in shock, but no one moved, no one spoke. They were all too accustomed to Victoria's family name, too afraid to challenge the Ashford heiress. The little girl stood frozen, her small body trembling. "Please," she whispered, "I can get a cloth." "I said lick it up," Victoria's voice echoed through the grand ballroom. "Your mother owes my family money, doesn't she?" $20,000 in hospital debt. Want me to call the collectors right now? Want them to take the last thing she left you?" The child's face went white. Slowly, her whole body shaking, she began to lower herself to her knees. And that's when Alexander Sterling moved. His footsteps rang out in the silent ballroom as he strode across the floor. Every eye followed him. His face was unreadable, but something dark and dangerous flickered in his eyes, something that made even Victoria take a step back. He reached the child just as her knees touched the marble. In one smooth motion, he removed his tuxedo jacket and placed it around her small shoulders. Then he turned to face Victoria, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet. But every person in that ballroom heard him clearly. "The wedding is off." Victoria's face went from shock to fury to panic in the span of 3 seconds. "Alexander, don't be ridiculous. She's just a—" "I said the wedding is off." He looked at her with something that might have been disgust, might have been pity. "And Victoria? You're going to regret this moment for the rest of your life." He turned to the little girl, who was staring up at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. There was something in her face, something in the shape of her eyes, the curve of her chin, that made his heart stop. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Emma," she whispered. "Emma Wilson." Wilson. The name hit him like a lightning bolt. His hand trembled as he reached out to gently tilt her chin up, studying her face in the golden light. "Who was your mother, Emma?" The little girl's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Her name was Sarah Wilson. She died 6 months ago." The ballroom spun. Alexander's vision tunneled. Sarah Wilson, the nurse, the woman with kind eyes who had pulled him from twisted metal and held his hand while they waited for the ambulance. The woman who had used her own body to shield him from the second impact. The woman who had saved his life 7 years ago and died doing it. He looked at this child, this brave, frightened little girl in worn clothes, and saw Sarah's eyes staring back at him. "Oh God," he breathed, "you're her daughter." The entire ballroom erupted into chaos. Guests were shouting questions. Victoria was screaming at him to explain. Security was rushing forward, but Alexander heard none of it. He knelt down and looked Emma Wilson directly in the eyes. "Emma, I knew your mother. She saved my life." His voice broke. "And I promise you, on everything I have, no one will ever make you kneel again." So Alexander guided Emma through the chaos of the ballroom, his hand protective on her shoulder. Behind them, Victoria's screams faded into white noise. His mind was spinning backward, catapulting him 7 years into the past. It had been raining that night in March. Alexander, just 23 and freshly minted as CEO of Sterling Technologies, had been driving too fast on the Pacific Coast Highway. Young, reckless, invincible, until the drunk driver crossed the median and everything went black. He remembered waking up trapped in twisted metal, the smell of gasoline thick in his nose. The car was on its side, and he couldn't feel his legs. Panic had clawed at his throat until he heard her voice. "Stay with me. I'm a nurse. My name is Sarah." She had appeared like an angel in the rain, her scrubs soaked, her hands gentle as she checked his pulse. She'd been driving home from her shift at County Hospital when she saw the accident. "Sarah," Alexander whispered now, Emma's small hand gripping his tightly as they exited through a side door. "Your mother was the bravest person I ever met." Emma looked up at him, her eyes, so much like Sarah's, searching his face. "She told me about you. She called you the man we saved." "We?" Alexander stopped walking, his heart hammering. "She was pregnant with me that night," Emma said softly. 7 months pregnant. She told me she almost didn't stop because of me. But she couldn't just drive by. Alexander felt his knees weaken. Sarah had been pregnant. She had risked her unborn child to save a stranger's life. "The second car hit while she was pulling you out," Emma continued, her voice eerily calm, as if she'd told this story many times. "She covered you with her body. The doctor said that's why you lived. That's why I lived too, but it hurt her spine. She was never the same after." The weight of it crushed him. Sarah Wilson had sacrificed her health, her future for him, and he had never known. After the accident, he'd woken up in the hospital, recovered, and returned to his life. He'd tried to find the nurse who saved him, but she'd disappeared, and eventually he'd stopped looking. "Emma." He knelt down to her level. "Where have you been living?" Her eyes dropped. "St. Mary's Children's Home, ever since Mama died." "An orphanage. Sarah's daughter was in an orphanage while he lived in a penthouse. The injustice of it burned through him like acid." "Not anymore," he said firmly. "Emma Wilson, would you like to come home with me?" For the first time since he'd seen her, Emma smiled, small and fragile but real. "Really? Really? We have a lot to talk about, you and I. About your mother. About everything." As he stood and took her hand, Alexander Sterling made a silent vow. He would spend the rest of his life making this right. Emma stood in the marble foyer of Alexander's mansion, her mouth forming a perfect O. The chandelier above was 3 times the size of the entire room she'd shared with 5 other girls at St. Mary's. Everything gleamed. The floors, the artwork, the enormous staircase that curved upward like something from a fairy tale. "This is where you live?" she breathed. "This is where we live now," Alexander corrected gently. He called out, "Margaret!" A woman in her 60s appeared, her kind face creasing with confusion as she took in the sight of her employer in a disheveled tuxedo with a small child in tow. "Margaret, this is Emma Wilson. She'll be staying with us. Please prepare the blue guest room and, Margaret, she'll need everything, clothes, toys, books, whatever children need." Margaret's eyes softened instantly. "Of course, Mr. Sterling. Come along, sweetheart, let's get you settled." As Emma followed Margaret upstairs, Alexander pulled out his phone and dialed his lawyer. "Richard, I need you here now. Bring everything you have on the Ashford family's business dealings, especially anything involving county hospital or medical debt collections." "Alexander, it's midnight. What's going on?" "Just get here. And Richard, this is going to get ugly." While he waited, Alexander poured himself a scotch and stared out at the glittering Los Angeles skyline. His phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from Victoria, from her father Harrison Ashford, from business partners who'd witnessed the scene. He ignored them all. 30 minutes later, Richard arrived with 2 assistants carrying file boxes. "I pulled everything I could on short notice. Alexander, what happened at that wedding?" Alexander told him everything about Emma, about Sarah, about the wine and Victoria's cruelty. "I need to know everything about the medical debt Victoria mentioned. $20,000. How did a little girl end up owing the Ashfords money?" Richard opened a file, and his expression darkened. "Oh, this is worse than I thought. Sarah Wilson was admitted to Ashford Memorial Hospital 6 months ago, terminal cancer. The bills came to $19,800, but Alexander..." He looked up, his face grave. "Sarah had insurance through county hospital. These bills should have been covered." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone made sure her insurance claims were denied. Someone wanted her to die in debt. And when she did..." Richard flipped through papers. The debt transferred to her only living relative, Emma Wilson, age 7. Alexander's hand tightened around his glass until his knuckles went white. "They targeted a dying woman. Then they went after her child. It gets worse. Ashford Memorial is owned by Harrison Ashford, Victoria's father." "Exactly. And the collection agency they sold the debt to, also owned by Ashford Holdings. They've been using Emma as essentially indentured labor. The arrangement with St. Mary's was that she'd work off the debt by serving at events. Alexander, what you witnessed tonight wasn't random cruelty. It was systematic exploitation." The glass shattered in Alexander's hand. He barely felt the sting as Richard rushed to help him. "They've been doing this to her for 6 months? A 7-year-old child?" "Yes, and legally there's nothing..." "I don't care about legally." Alexander's voice was ice. "I care about what's right. Draft adoption papers. Tonight. Emma Wilson is going to be my daughter, and the Ashfords are going to pay for every single moment of suffering they caused." Upstairs, Emma lay in a bed so soft she felt like she was floating. Through the open door, she could hear Alexander's voice, fierce and protective. For the first time since her mother died, Emma felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. The headlines hit before dawn. "Billionaire leaves bride at altar for mystery child." By sunrise, every news channel was running the story. Paparazzi camped outside Alexander's gate. His phone exploded with calls from board members, investors, and concerned friends. Alexander ignored them all. He sat at breakfast with Emma, watching her carefully eat pancakes as if afraid they might disappear. "You can have more," he said gently. You can have anything you want. Emma looked at him with those wise, sad eyes. Mama used to make pancakes on Sundays before she got sick. Alexander's chest tightened. Tell me about her. I want to know everything. And Emma did. She told him about Sarah's terrible jokes, about how she'd sing off-key while cooking, about the stories she'd tell at bedtime. She told him about the hospital room, about holding her mother's hand at the end, about the social worker who came to take her to St. Mary's. She made me promise something, Emma said quietly, right before she left. What was that? She said, Emma, remember that you come from love. You're strong because I'm strong, and I'm strong because of you. Never let anyone make you forget that. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But Mr. Sterling, sometimes I do forget. When people like that lady at the wedding look at me like I'm garbage, I forget. Alexander moved around the table and knelt beside her chair. Her name is Victoria, and you will never have to see her again. And Emma, your mother was right. You are strong. You're the strongest person I know. The doorbell rang insistently. Margaret appeared, looking flustered. Mr. Sterling, it's Miss Ashford. She's demanding to see you. She has her father with her. Let them in. Alexander's voice was calm, but his eyes were steel. Emma, go upstairs with Margaret. What happens next isn't for children. Emma hesitated, then nodded. As she left, she turned back. Mr. Sterling, thank you for not making me lick the floor. The simple statement broke something in Alexander. He waited until Emma was out of sight, then composed himself before walking to the foyer. Victoria stood there in designer sunglasses despite the early hour, her father Harrison Ashford beside her, tall, silver-haired, every inch the patriarch. Alexander, Victoria began, her voice honey-sweet. I think we got off on the wrong foot last night. I was stressed, the child was clumsy, I overreacted, but darling, we can fix this. The wedding can still happen. A few weeks' delay, we'll say you had cold feet. Get out. Victoria blinked. What? I said get out of my house. Alexander's voice could have frozen fire. And take your father with you. Harrison Ashford stepped forward, his smile predatory. Now, son, let's be reasonable. You're upset. I understand. But you need to think about this carefully. The merger between Sterling Technologies and Ashford Holdings is dead. As of this moment, I'm instructing my team to terminate all business relationships with any Ashford entity. Harrison's smile vanished. You're making a mistake, a very expensive mistake. No, Harrison, you made the mistake. You and your daughter tortured a child, Sarah Wilson's child, and now you're going to pay for it. Victoria's mask slipped. This is about that little brat? Alexander, don't be ridiculous. She's nobody. Her mother was nobody. They owe us. Sarah Wilson saved my life. Alexander's roar echoed through the foyer. She was 7 months pregnant, and she risked everything to pull me from burning wreckage. She shielded me with her own body. She spent the rest of her life in pain because of injuries she got saving me. And when she was dying, you people denied her insurance, buried her in debt, and then used her child as slave labor. The color drained from Harrison's face. You didn't know. All this time you didn't know who the child was. I know now. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to forgive every cent of that fabricated debt. You're going to write a check to St. Mary's Children's Home for every hour Emma worked, and then you're going to pray, I don't destroy you completely. Victoria laughed shrilly. You can't do this. My father's company is leveraged to the hilt with loans from Sterling Financial. Loans I can call in. Tomorrow morning, Harrison, you're going to find out exactly what happens when you go to war with me. Alexander moved to the door and opened it. Now get out, and if you ever come near Emma again, I will end you. As they left, Victoria turned back, her face twisted with venom. You'll regret this, Alexander. That child isn't your responsibility. She's nothing to you. She's everything. Alexander said quietly, and closed the door. Upstairs, Emma had heard every word. She sat on the stairs, her small hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Margaret sat beside her, arm around her shoulders. "Did you hear that, sweetheart?" Margaret whispered, "You're safe now. You're finally safe." But Emma was thinking about something else, something Victoria had said. "I'm nothing to you." Emma knew it wasn't true. She could hear it in Alexander's voice, feel it in the way he'd protected her. But she also knew Victoria Ashford wasn't the type to give up easily. This war was just beginning. 3 days later, Alexander's lawyer called with news. The Ashfords caved. They've forgiven the debt and written the check to St. Mary's. But Alexander, there's something else. When we went through Sarah Wilson's belongings in storage, the items from her apartment that the state seized, we found a box. It's addressed to Emma Wilson, to be given to her on her 18th birthday. Bring it here, today. That evening, Alexander sat with Emma in his study. The cardboard box sat between them, sealed with tape that had yellowed with time. Emma's name was written on top in flowing script. "It's Mama's handwriting," Emma whispered, reaching out to trace the letters. "Would you like me to open it?" Alexander asked gently. Emma nodded, suddenly afraid. Inside were letters, dozens of them bundled with ribbon. Each envelope had a date and a number. The first was labeled Letter 1, the day you were born. "She wrote to me," Emma breathed. "Even after she died, she was still talking to me." Alexander felt his throat tighten as Emma carefully opened the first letter. Sarah's voice came through in every word. "My dearest Emma, you arrived at 3:47 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday, exactly 2 months after I pulled a young man from a burning car. The doctors said you were healthy, perfect, 10 fingers and 10 toes. But I knew you were more than that. You were proof that even in our darkest moments, we can choose to help someone else. That night on the highway, I was scared. I was pregnant with you, and every instinct told me to keep driving, to keep us safe, but I couldn't. Because you, my darling girl, you deserved to be born into a world where people help each other, where we don't drive past someone who's hurting. So I stopped, and yes, I got hurt, and yes, things have been harder because of it. But Emma, I would make that choice again 1,000 times, because you need to know this. Love is always worth the cost. The man I saved was named Alexander Sterling. I learned his name from the news reports. He's young, handsome, successful. Everything the world says matters. But in that car, bleeding and afraid, he was just a person who needed help. Just like we all are when the glamour falls away. I don't know if you'll ever meet him. I don't know if he'll remember me, but Emma, if you do cross paths someday, I want you to know something. You helped save him too, because if I hadn't been carrying you, I might not have had the courage to stop. You made me brave. Love always. Mama Emma was crying. Alexander was crying. Margaret, standing in the doorway, was crying. She knew. Emma sobbed. She knew about you all along. We did save you together. Alexander pulled Emma into his arms, this child who had become his whole world in the span of 3 days. Your mother was an extraordinary woman, and you, Emma Wilson, are going to grow up knowing exactly how loved you are. They spent hours reading letters together. Sarah had written about Emma's first steps, her first words, her first day of school. She'd written about the pain, yes, but mostly she'd written about joy, about the privilege of being Emma's mother. The last letter was dated 2 weeks before Sarah's death. My darling Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry, baby. I wanted more time. I wanted to see you grow up, go to college, fall in love, have children of your own. But life doesn't always give us what we want. Here's what I need you to know. You are not alone. You never were. God has a plan for you, Emma. I don't know what it is, but I trust it. And I truly believe, that Alexander Sterling will come into your life again. When I was in the hospital, they told me my insurance was denied. They told me you'd inherit my debt. And Emma, I was so scared, not of dying. I was scared of leaving you unprotected. But then I remembered that night on the highway. I remembered choosing to stop, choosing love over fear. And I made a choice again. I chose to believe that the universe has a way of completing circles. I saved him. And somehow, someday, that will matter for you. Be brave, my darling. Be kind. Remember that you come from love. And if you ever feel alone, know that I am with you, always. Your loving Mama Alexander looked at Emma's tear-stained face and felt the weight of destiny settle on his shoulders. Sarah had believed. Against all odds, against all reason, she had believed that he would find Emma. Your mother was right, he said softly. The circle is complete. And Emma, I want to make this official. I want to adopt you. I want you to be my daughter. Would that be okay with you? Emma threw her arms around his neck. More than okay, she whispered. Mama would be so happy. But as Alexander held her, he couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah's letters had given him something else. Not just permission to love Emma, but a warning. The way she'd written about the insurance denial, about the debt. There was something darker there, something intentional. Tomorrow he would dig deeper. Tonight he would simply hold this brave little girl and promise her mother's ghost that he would never let anyone hurt her again. Alexander's private investigator, James Chen, arrived exactly at 9 a.m. with a manila folder thick enough to be a weapon. His expression was grim. You're not going to like this, James said, settling into the leather chair across from Alexander's desk. Just tell me. James opened the folder and pulled out a series of documents. Sarah Wilson's insurance denial wasn't bureaucratic error. It was targeted. Someone at Ashford Memorial flagged her file specifically. But that's not the worst part. Go on. 3 years ago, Victoria Ashford was in a minor car accident. Nothing serious, but she was treated at County Hospital. Guess who her nurse was? Alexander's blood ran cold. Sarah. Exactly, and according to hospital records, there was an incident. Victoria made a complaint. Claimed Sarah was unprofessional, rough with her during treatment. The complaint was investigated and dismissed. Sarah's supervisor noted that Victoria seemed angry that Sarah wouldn't give her preferential treatment or extra pain medication she didn't need. Victoria held a grudge for 3 years. And when Sarah was diagnosed with cancer and admitted to Ashford Memorial, the only hospital her insurance covered for oncology, Victoria found out. I have emails, Alexander. Internal Ashford Holdings emails between Victoria and her father's CFO. James slid a printout across the desk. Alexander read it, his hands beginning to shake. From Victoria Ashford to Marcus Chen, CFO Ashford Holdings. Subject, insurance claim, Sarah Wilson. Marcus, remember that nurse who was so unpleasant to me at County? Sarah Wilson, she's been admitted to our hospital, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, very sad. I notice her insurance is through County Hospital. I want this claim denied, all of it. Find whatever technicalities you need. She was rude to me, and now she can pay for it. Literally. Also, she has a daughter, 7 years old. When Wilson dies, make sure the debt transfers. I'm sure we can find use for child labor at our events. It'll teach her mother's daughter some humility. V. The paper crumpled in Alexander's fist. She planned this. She knew Sarah was dying, and she saw an opportunity for revenge. There's more. James pulled out another document. 2 months ago, Victoria was having lunch with friends. Someone recorded the conversation. Listen. He played an audio file on his phone. Victoria's voice, bright with wine and malice. And you should see this little blonde thing at the events we host. She's the daughter of a nurse who was a total bitch to me years ago. I had Daddy make sure they paid for it. Now the kid works our parties like a servant. It's perfect. She's absolutely terrified of me. Sometimes I make her do extra humiliating things just because I can. It's like having a pet that you can torment." Alexander's vision went red. She knew. When Emma was serving at our wedding, Victoria knew exactly who she was. She brought her there specifically to humiliate her at our wedding. That's not all. James looked physically ill. 3 weeks ago, someone sent an anonymous email to Victoria about you. It detailed the accident 7 years ago, mentioned Sarah Wilson by name, and explained how she saved your life. The email suggested that you might be looking for Sarah to thank her. And Victoria realized that Emma was the daughter of the woman who saved your life. She knew if you ever found out, you'd be furious, so she was planning to. James swallowed hard. The day after your wedding, Victoria had arranged to have Emma transferred to a work program in Nevada, essentially a labor camp for children with debt. Emma would have disappeared, and you never would have known she existed. Alexander stood so fast his chair toppled backward. That bottle of wine at the wedding wasn't an accident. Victoria brought Emma out specifically to humiliate her one last time before shipping her off. She thought it would be a fun story to tell at parties, how she made Alexander Sterling's dead savior's daughter lick wine off the floor at her wedding. She just didn't count on you recognizing Emma's last name. The room spun. Everything clicked into place. The cruelty, the timing, the specific nature of the humiliation. It had all been calculated. "James, I need you to give this to the district attorney, all of it. Already done. They're reviewing it for charges, fraud, exploitation of a minor, conspiracy. But Alexander..." James hesitated. "Harrison Ashford claims he knew nothing about Victoria's vendetta. The emails show Victoria acted independently, using her access to company systems. She's trying to shield her father. Convenient." Alexander's voice was acid. "Find me everything on Harrison too, everything. If he knew, if he had even the slightest hint of what his daughter was doing. I want him buried alongside her." After James left, Alexander sat in silence, staring at the emails. Victoria Ashford hadn't just been cruel. She'd been calculating, evil. She'd taken a dying woman's last wish, to leave her daughter protected, and twisted it into something monstrous. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Emma stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit Margaret had bought her. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You look sad." Alexander crossed the room and knelt down, taking her small hands in his. "Emma, I need you to know something. What happened at the wedding, what that woman did to you, it wasn't random. She knew who you were, she knew who your mother was, and she hurt you because of it." Emma's eyes widened. "Because Mama saved you?" "Yes, but Emma, listen to me. Your mother's act of kindness, stopping to help a stranger, it led to this moment. You and me right here. She saved me so that I could save you. Do you understand? The circle is complete." Emma thought about this for a long moment. "Mama used to say that love always wins. Even when it looks like it loses, it wins in the end. Your mother was a very wise woman." "Mr. Sterling?" Emma's voice was small. "Can I call you Dad?" Alexander felt his heart crack open. "I would be honored. But Emma, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Never let anyone make you feel small again. Not Victoria, not anyone. You are Emma Wilson Sterling, daughter of a hero, and you bow to no one. Understood?" Emma nodded solemnly. Then she threw her arms around his neck and whispered, "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for finding me." And as Alexander held his daughter, because she was his daughter now, in every way that mattered, he thought about Sarah's last letter. She had believed the universe would bring them together, and she'd been right. But Victoria Ashford had no idea what she'd unleashed when she decided to torture a child, because Alexander Sterling protected his own. And now he had all the ammunition he needed to ensure the Ashfords paid for every single moment of Emma's suffering. The war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Within 2 days, leaked emails hit every major outlet. Heiress targeted dying nurse's child dominated headlines. Victoria Ashford's face plastered across screens, always that cold, perfect smile from charity galas. Alexander watched the evening news with Emma beside him. The anchor detailed how Victoria allegedly knew Emma was the daughter of his savior and brought her to the wedding specifically to humiliate her before shipping her to a labor camp. "Dad?" Emma said softly, the 3rd time she'd used that word. "Are people going to hate her forever?" The question surprised him. "Does that bother you?" "Mama said hate makes you sick inside. Even when people hurt you, you can't let hate win." Those wise eyes studied him. "I don't want to be sick inside." "Your mother was right. But wanting justice isn't hate, Emma. I know, but I think she must be really sad inside to do something so mean. Happy people don't hurt kids like that." At 7 years old, Emma had more wisdom than most adults Alexander knew. Margaret appeared. Mr. Sterling, reporters at the gate, dozens requesting a statement. "They set up a press conference tomorrow. It's time we told our side." That night, tucking Emma in, she asked, "Will I have to talk to reporters?" "Never. You only talk to people you want to. This is my fight now." "But I'm not really a kid anymore, am I? Kids don't work parties. Kids don't worry about debt. Kids don't watch their mamas die." Alexander's throat tightened. "You're right. You grew up too fast. But if you'll let me, I want to give you a chance to be a child again. Will you let me try?" Emma nodded. "Okay, I'll try too." The next morning, Alexander faced the reporters. Cameras flashed as he approached the microphone. 3 weeks ago, I witnessed Victoria Ashford humiliate a 7-year-old child at my wedding. That child was Emma Wilson, daughter of Sarah Wilson, who saved my life 7 years ago when she was pregnant with Emma." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Sarah shielded me with her body. Those injuries caused chronic pain for the rest of her life. She died 6 months ago, cancer treatment deliberately denied by Ashford Memorial as revenge by Victoria Ashford. Emma spent 6 months exploited as child labor for a debt that should never have existed." "Are you adopting Emma Wilson?" a reporter shouted. "She's my daughter now, in every way that matters. Sarah saved my life. The least I can do is give her daughter the life Sarah wanted for her. And if that destroys the Ashfords, that's justice, not revenge." Inside, watching television, Emma's tears were happy ones for the first time in 6 months. The letters started 2 weeks after the press conference. Handwritten, unsigned, slipped under doors or left on Alexander's car. "You think you've won. You haven't. Emma will pay for your arrogance." Then she walks to the garden every morning at 7 a.m. She takes piano lessons Tuesdays. She's afraid of the dark. Someone was watching Emma. Alexander pulled her from school, hired tutors, doubled security. He barely slept, reviewing footage at 2 a.m. "You'll make yourself sick," Margaret warned. "Someone's threatening my daughter." "Mr. Sterling, Victoria is impulsive. These letters are patient, methodical. That's not her style." She was right. Someone else was involved. James Chen arrived with a nervous, middle-aged woman. "This is Patricia Morrison, Victoria's former assistant." Patricia's hands shook. "I quit because of what she did to that child. My daughter is 7, but you need to know. Victoria has an older brother, Marcus Ashford." Alexander frowned. "I've never heard of him." "That's intentional. 20 years ago, Marcus assaulted a woman at a party. Harrison paid her off and sent Marcus to Europe. He's not allowed back in the US, or wasn't." Patricia pulled out papers. "When Victoria's scandal broke, Marcus called her. I overheard. He said, I'll make him understand Ashfords don't lose. We take what's precious and break it. Alexander's blood ran cold. When? 3 weeks ago. Right before your first letter. James showed a photo. Marcus Ashford, age 42, multiple restraining orders, history of violence, facial recognition, caught him entering illegally at a Nevada airstrip 4 weeks ago. He's here, in Los Angeles. Patricia pulled more papers from her purse. Flight manifests, hotel receipts. Marcus is staying at an Ashford property in Beverly Hills. There are photos, dozens of Emma, your house, her routines. Get the police here now, Alexander commanded. As they built their case through the night, Alexander couldn't shake cold dread. Marcus wasn't just watching Emma, he was planning something, and Alexander had no idea what or when. 3 days later, Emma asked to visit her mother's grave. Despite security concerns, Alexander couldn't refuse that hopeful face. Sunday morning they arrived at Evergreen Cemetery. Security had swept twice. James drove with 2 vehicles trailing. Emma knelt at Sarah's modest granite marker, arranging white roses. "Hi, Mama, I brought someone." "Alexander Sterling. You remember him. He's my dad now." Alexander knelt beside her. "Sarah, I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner, but I promise Emma will have the life you wanted. She'll know she's loved every single day." Emma stiffened. "Dad, there's a man watching us." 30 feet away, a man in dark clothes stood behind a mausoleum. Their eyes met. He ran. "Stay with James." Alexander sprinted after him through graves. Behind, James radioed backup. Alexander tackled the man near the west wall. They struggled violently. Alexander pinned him. "Who are you? Marcus Ashford?" The man laughed coldly. "Marcus says hello, says you can't protect her forever." Security arrived. In daylight, the man was young with cold eyes and a snake-neck tattoo. Derek Pierce, assault stalking on his record. At the station, Pierce refused to talk. Then Detective Sarah Chen approached privately. 20 years ago, I worked a case on Marcus Ashford, a woman he assaulted. We had evidence, but Harrison's lawyers buried it. I've always regretted not fighting harder." She leaned forward. "Derek Pierce used to work Ashford security, fired for being too violent. If he's with Marcus now, it's serious. Pierce doesn't do surveillance. He does kidnapping, assault, worse. The real attack is coming. Then arrest Marcus. On what evidence? Pierce won't talk. We need time." We don't have time." That night, Emma found the doll on her windowsill. Porcelain, blonde hair, blue dress, identical to her wedding outfit. A note around its neck. Soon. Someone had bypassed their security, used the gardener's ladder, left this threat while Emma ate breakfast. Reviewing footage, James found Pierce, released on bail. And look, someone in a car across the street signaled him. Enhanced image, Marcus Ashford behind the wheel. "He can get to Emma any time," Alexander said. "We're not running, we're ending this." That evening, Alexander held another press conference. "I'm addressing Marcus Ashford directly. You've terrorized my 7-year-old daughter. So here's my message. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m., Sterling Technologies building. Just you and me, face to face. Or keep hiding behind death threats to children and show the world you're a coward." Back home, Emma watched. "Dad, what if he hurts you?" "He won't. Trust me, sweetheart. This has to end." What he didn't tell her, police would be hidden, recording everything. If Marcus made threats, they'd arrest him on the spot. Alexander was betting on one thing: Marcus's ego wouldn't let him refuse. 9 p.m. came. Alexander stood alone in his office, police hidden on other floors. At 9:17, the private elevator dinged. Marcus Ashford stepped out, tall, well-dressed, cold eyes like his sister, but frozen, calculated. "Sterling, brave of you." "I could say the same." Marcus circled like a predator. "I've considered many ways to hurt you, But the best punishment is watching you lose everything, piece by piece, starting with that little girl. You're threatening a child. That's recorded. Marcus laughed. I have diplomatic immunity. My father arranged it years ago. You can't touch me, but I can touch you. Touch Emma, and there's nothing you can do. Then Marcus said something that made Alexander's world explode. Besides, Victoria isn't even the one who had Sarah Wilson's insurance denied. That was me. Alexander froze. What? Victoria told me about the rude nurse. I thought it would be fun to destroy her. Used Victoria's credentials, sent the emails. My stupid sister took the fall, but it was my idea from the start. I made Sarah Wilson die in agony. Made her daughter a servant. It was all me. Police behind walls recorded every word, but Alexander barely heard them, staring at this monster who'd orchestrated Sarah's death from thousands of miles away as a game. Why? Because I was bored, and because I could, just like I can make Emma disappear whenever I want. I have people everywhere, in your house, your company, watching, waiting. Then why haven't you? Marcus smiled wider. Because fear is more fun. Emma knows I'm coming, feels me in every shadow. That terror is my gift to you both, and when I finally take her, and I will, she'll be too afraid to scream. Alexander's rage turned cold and calculated. You made one mistake, Marcus. What's that? You assumed I'd play by the rules. Alexander pressed his phone. You said you have people in my company, so do I, and they just heard everything. Lights blazed on, every floor, every office. In each window stood staff members holding phones, recording. Marcus's confession broadcast to 500 employees simultaneously, already going viral online. That's not admissible in court. No, but it's admissible in the court of public opinion. By morning, everyone knows you killed Sarah Wilson. And Marcus, your immunity protects you from jail. It doesn't protect you from being hunted by everyone who's ever loved someone. Police burst from stairwells. Marcus Ashford, you're under arrest for stalking, terroristic threats, conspiracy to commit murder. You can't arrest me. Immunity. For crimes abroad, Detective Chen said with handcuffs, stalking Emma Sterling happened on U.S. soil. You're fair game. As they dragged Marcus away screaming, Alexander sagged against his desk, finally over. But driving home, he couldn't shake Marcus's cold, certain smile, as if even in defeat, Marcus believed he'd won something. That terrified Alexander more than anything. Marcus Ashford's confession went viral. 20 million views in 24 hours. Ashford Holdings stock crashed. Harrison Ashford suffered a stroke. The empire was collapsing, but Emma grew quiet, smiled less, nightmares more. Dad, what if he gets out? What if he has more people? Emma, he's going to prison. Victoria's out on bail. What if Marcus gets bail too? She had a point. Marcus's lawyers were fighting hard. I want to see him, Emma said at breakfast. Alexander nearly dropped his coffee. Absolutely not. I need to see him in jail, see that he can't hurt me. You're 7 years old. I'm not 7 anymore. Not really. I stopped being 7 when Mama died. I need to stop being afraid, Dad. Margaret spoke from the doorway. Sometimes the only way through fear is to face it. Through legal negotiations, Alexander arranged a supervised visit. Emma, Alexander, guards, and a psychologist. Marcus shackled behind reinforced glass. The jail was grey and cold. Emma held Alexander's hand through security checkpoints. Finally, the visiting room. Marcus in orange, hands cuffed to the table. When he saw Emma, he smiled. Well, well, the little princess. Emma picked up the phone. Alexander stood behind her, tense. Hello, Marcus. Did you come to gloat? No, I came to tell you something Mama taught me. She said broken people break people. Someone who hurts others is really hurting themselves first. They're sad and empty inside. Marcus's smile faltered. I'm not. You are. You hurt my mama because you were bored. Tried to hurt me because Dad exposed your sister. You've spent your life hurting people because you're sad and don't know how to feel better. You don't know anything about me. I know you're going to prison. I know everyone sees you now. Your family name is ruined, and when you're alone in your cell, you'll still be broken, still sad." Emma leaned closer. "But I won't be. Because Mama taught me how to be whole even when bad things happen. She taught me love is stronger than hate." Marcus's face twisted with rage. "You think you've won? I have connections, money. I'll be out in months." "When you are, I'll be with my dad, going to school, having friends and family and a life. And you'll still be broken. That's the difference. You tried to destroy me but couldn't, because I come from love, and love doesn't break." Marcus stared, searching for a cutting response. Nothing came. For the first time, Marcus Ashford had no power. Emma stood. "I forgive you. Not for you, for me. Because carrying hate makes you sick inside, and I don't want to be sick. I want to be happy, like my mama, someone who chooses love even when it's hard." She hung up and turned to Alexander. "Can we go home now, Dad?" As they left, Marcus sat alone, staring at the empty chair. For the first time since his arrest, the full weight of what he'd done crashed over him. He'd tried to break a child. Instead, she'd shown him exactly how broken he was. No coming back from that. In the car, Emma was quiet. Alexander kept glancing at her, worried. "Emma, are you okay?" "Yeah, I really am." "What you said was incredibly brave. Mama said the bravest thing is choosing kindness when someone chooses cruelty. I wanted to hate him. It would have been easier. But then I'd be like him, letting pain make me mean." Alexander pulled over, unable to drive through tears. "Emma Sterling, you're the most remarkable person I've ever known. Your mother would be so proud." Emma smiled, bright and genuine. "I think she is. I think she's watching. And she's happy we found each other. So am I, sweetheart, so am I." As they drove home, Alexander felt something shift. For months he'd been consumed with protecting Emma, fighting the Ashfords, seeking justice. But Emma taught him something profound. The greatest victory wasn't destroying enemies. It was refusing to let them destroy you. Still, pulling into the driveway, Alexander couldn't shake one worry. Marcus's trial was weeks away, Victoria's even further, and cornered animals were most dangerous. This war might be ending. But Alexander had a terrible feeling the final battle was yet to come. 6 months later, Emma Sterling stood in front of her new school, Riverside Academy, the finest private school in Los Angeles. But she wasn't nervous about classes or making friends. Today was different. Today was the dedication ceremony. Alexander stood beside her, his hand warm on her shoulder, as they looked at the brass plaque being unveiled. The Sarah Wilson Memorial Wing, in honor of a hero who chose love over fear. Emma had asked for this. Instead of a statue or scholarship, she wanted something her mother would have loved, a medical training center where nursing students could learn for free. Every student who graduated would take an oath to stop and help, even when it's scary, even when it costs something. "Your mama would be so proud," Alexander whispered as the crowd applauded. Emma smiled, but her eyes were on someone in the back, a young woman, maybe 19, with dark hair and nervous eyes, Jennifer Rodriguez, the woman Marcus had assaulted 20 years ago. She'd flown from Mexico for this ceremony. After the trial, she and Emma had become pen pals. The trial, 3 months of testimony, evidence, tears. Victoria Ashford received 12 years for fraud and child exploitation. Marcus received 25 for conspiracy, stalking, and what the DA called orchestrating systematic torture of a dying woman and her child. No diplomatic immunity could save him from crimes committed on U.S. soil with evidence this damning. Harrison Ashford, broken by his stroke and shame, had liquidated Ashford Holdings. The proceeds went to victims of medical debt fraud. He lived now in a modest apartment, his empire dust. After the ceremony, Jennifer approached Emma. "I wanted to thank you. Watching you forgive Marcus, it helped me finally let go of my own hate. I've carried it for 20 years. Emma took her hand. "Mama used to say forgiveness isn't for them, it's for us, so we can be free. Your mother was wise." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "And so are you." That evening, Alexander found Emma in Sarah's old room, the one he'd preserved exactly as it was, with Sarah's letters, photos and belongings. Emma sat reading letter number 47, written when Sarah was in the hospital. "Can't sleep?" Alexander asked gently. "Just talking to Mama." Emma looked up. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Do you think she knew that you'd find me, that we'd be a family?" Alexander sat beside her on the bed. "I think your mother had faith. Not that she knew the future, but that she trusted love would find a way, and she was right." Emma was quiet for a moment. "I used to be so angry at her for stopping that night, for getting hurt, for leaving me. But now I understand she didn't leave me. She led me to you. Emma, it's true. Everything that happened, the accident, her injuries, even her dying, it all brought us together. It's like she drew a map through the pain straight to you." Tears rolled down Emma's cheeks. "She saved you so you could save me. That was her plan all along." Alexander pulled her close, his own tears falling. "Then we can't let her down. We have to live the kind of life that makes her sacrifice mean something." "How do we do that?" "By being exactly what you were in that jail with Marcus. By choosing love when it's hard. By helping people even when it costs us. By being brave enough to stop when others keep driving." He lifted her chin. "Your mother's legacy isn't that she died, Emma. It's that she lived with purpose. And now we get to carry that forward." Emma wiped her eyes and smiled. "I have an idea for my birthday next month." "What's that?" "Instead of a party, can we go to the highway? Where the accident happened, I want to see where Mama chose to be brave." 3 weeks later, they stood on the Pacific Coast Highway as sunset painted the ocean gold. A small memorial marker had been placed there, another of Emma's ideas. It read, "Sarah Wilson stopped here. She chose love. Be brave enough to do the same." Cars rushed past, drivers focused on their destinations, unaware of the sacred ground beneath their wheels. But one car slowed, then another. People read the sign, some stopped, asked questions. Emma told them her mother's story. "And the man she saved?" An older woman asked, tears in her eyes. Emma smiled and took Alexander's hand. "He's my dad now. Mama saved him and then he saved me. Love always finds a way." The woman hugged Emma. "Your mother was an angel." "No," Emma said gently. "She was human. She was scared that night. But she was brave anyway. That's what heroes are, people who choose to help even when they're afraid." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Alexander and Emma sat on the hood of his car, watching the ocean turn purple and gold. "Dad?" Emma said quietly. "Yes, sweetheart." "Thank you for making me lick the floor." Alexander's head whipped around in shock. "What?" Emma giggled, a sound he never tired of hearing. "I mean, thank you for not making me lick the floor, for standing up for me, for seeing me when I was invisible." "You were never invisible, Emma. You were the brightest light in that room. I just needed my eyes to adjust." "Do you think you'll ever get married, for real this time?" The question surprised him. "I don't know. Why?" "Because you deserve to be happy too. Mama would want that. She'd want you to have someone who sees your light the way you saw mine." Alexander smiled. "Maybe someday. But right now I have everything I need. I have you." Emma leaned against his shoulder. "I have you too, Dad, and Mama, and all the people she taught us to be kind to. That's a pretty big family." They sat in comfortable silence as stars began appearing overhead. The same stars that had watched Sarah Wilson make her choice 7 years ago. The same stars that watched Emma survive 6 months of exploitation. The same stars that watched Alexander cancel a wedding and start a new life. "Dad," Emma whispered as they drove home. I'm not afraid anymore. Of Marcus, of Victoria, of being alone. I'm not afraid of anything." What changed? I realized something. Mama faced her scariest moment, choosing between safety and saving someone, and she chose love. And that one choice changed everything. It saved you. It made me. It brought us together. One choice, Dad. That's all it takes to change the world. Alexander felt his heart swell with pride. "You're going to do incredible things, Emma Sterling." "We're going to do incredible things," she corrected. "Together." And as they pulled into the driveway of the mansion that was now truly home, Alexander knew she was right. Sarah Wilson's sacrifice hadn't ended with her death. It had planted seeds that were only beginning to bloom. Emma would grow up knowing she came from love. She'd become a doctor someday, following in her mother's footsteps but blazing her own trail. She'd help people, save lives, stop when others kept driving, and she'd tell everyone who'd listen about the nurse who chose bravery on a rainy night, and the circle of love that choice created. The wedding that never happened had given Alexander something far more valuable than a wife. It had given him a daughter, a purpose, a chance to honor the woman who'd saved his life by giving her child the world. Victoria Ashford had tried to make Emma lick wine from the floor. Instead, she'd handed Alexander the greatest gift he'd ever received, the realization of who Emma was and the chance to make everything right. As Emma drifted to sleep that night, she whispered to the photo of Sarah on her nightstand, "Thank you, Mama, for stopping, for being brave, for leading me home." And somewhere, in the place where love never dies, Sarah Wilson smiled. Her circle was complete. Her daughter was safe. Her sacrifice had meant everything. Love had won, just like she always said it would.